Welcome to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we're discussing Krishna's progeny and what happened at Annirudha's wedding. Sorry about that. So we are live on YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook live as well. I will begin by chanting some verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam as invocation. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3. Yasvanubhavam Akhila Shruti Sharamekam Adhyatmadipam Atitir Satam Tamondo Samsarinam Karunahaya Purana Guhyam Tapyasasunam Apaya Bigurum Maninam. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Sukha, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyas, who, out of great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 4, another nice verse. Famous verse. Narayanam namaskrityam naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamuti daret. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. One more. Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17. Sharidvatam svakata Krishna, punya shravana kirtana, hridyantasto hyamadrani, vidunoti suhrit satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Welcome again to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam, where each week, twice a week, we discuss a section from the Bhagavatam and consider some lessons that we can apply in life. Today we continue with the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. We are discussing the 61st chapter, chapter 61, and our topic is Krishna's progeny and what happened at Annirudha's wedding. Again, this is based on chapter 61 of the 10th canto. And to enter into this discussion, I would like to ask you to reflect and to just consider a moment where you might have to make a decision between two parties who are both your friends, or maybe they're your family members or their children, and each side has a different view, and they want you to choose sides, and how difficult that can be. I'm sure you must have been in a situation at one stage or another. And now let's think about Krishna. Krishna has, well, he's the father of all living beings. Everyone is looking to Krishna and want, whether they know it or not, wanting Krishna to be on their side. And so what a difficult position that puts Krishna in. Bhagavad said that The the honest person is praying to Krishna saying, "Please make sure, Krishna, please make sure I'm safe and everything is protected." And then the thief, before stealing, might be also praying to Krishna, "Dear Krishna, please make sure I don't get caught." And so Krishna is receiving both sets of prayers. And what is he to do? So an interesting dilemma. We would say that generally he would side with the righteous person who is uh, at least keeping Krishna's rules, right? Keeping dharma. So Krishna will be more inclined to reciprocate with that person who's following his dharma. Nonetheless, it's just an example that, yeah, where it's more black and white. So we can think of other contexts where not as black and white and two opposing sides of praying to Krishna for his support. So we're going to discuss a story where this issue comes up, an opportunity for us to reflect and to gain insight and lessons. Kirtina is with us from Norway. Kirtina says, Dandavat. So thank you for joining, Kirtina. If anyone else would like to introduce yourselves, say hello, please do type there into the chat. And it will be a pleasure for me to know who you are and to acknowledge you, to acknowledge your presence. We're going to discuss this pastime in 3 sections, but before we chant the invocatory prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to discuss this in 3 sections. Section 1, how Krishna lived with his 16,108 queens. Section 2, we'll consider, that'll be based on verses 1 through to 6 of the 61st chapter. Section 2, we'll hear about some of Krishna's children from his principal queens. And then section 3 will be what happened at Annirudha's wedding, special event, a noteworthy event, we can say, verses 20 through to 40. So we begin with this topic then, how Krishna interacted with his principal queens. Sorry, I just saw, and now I see some other comments. So let me acknowledge Adi Badri is with us from Peru. Adi Badri says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Happy New Year. Hope you can visit Peru this year. Thank you, Adi Badri. That would be nice. Then we have Amiyama joining us from Christchurch, New Zealand. Amiyama says, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Kirti we have acknowledged. And then Gopal Govindashyam says, Hare Krishna Shri Prahlada Prabhu. Happy New Year. Thanks for being with us. Gopal Govindashyam joining us from Orlando, Florida, I believe. Wonderful. Okay, so the first of our 3 topics, how Krishna lived with his 16,108 queens in Dwaraka. And how he lived with them was by pleasing them and making each one feel so special. Not understanding the full truth about Krishna, each of his queens thought that because he always remained in her palace, he must be, and that she must be his favorite wife. She must be his favorite queen. So how expert is Krishna? He was able to make each of his 16,108 queens feel that she was the most special, that she was most favorite. Only Krishna can do that. All of these queens were completely in love with Krishna. They were entranced by his beauty. They loved engaging in conversation with him because he was so interesting and attentive and engaged and present. They had so much affection, and this would be expressed also by their, let's say, coy glances, smiles, feminine gestures. But Sukadev Goswami says that they weren't able to agitate Krishna's mind. He loved them, but he didn't love them in a materialistic way. Sukadev Goswami, he marvels, having attained Krishna as their husband, Krishna, whom even demigods like Brahma and Shiva find difficult to know in truth. These queens were always eager to be in Krishna's presence. They were always eager for his association. And then he says that each of these 16,108 princesses had hundreds of maidservants of their own. Nonetheless, they would personally engage in rendering different types of menial service in the palace. This is also really wonderful. It indicates the beauty of devotional service. So we can pause. One is that this point how even the queens, even though the queens had numerous servants at their disposal, they personally engaged in menial service for Krishna. And this is indicated also as the case in the spiritual sky in Goloka Vrindavan. Excuse me, from one of the verses of Brahma Samhita. You're welcome to chant along with me, verbally or in your mind. Chintamani prakarasadamasu kalpa vriksha laksha lakshavriteshu surabhira vipalayantam lakshmi sahasrasatasam brahma sevyamanam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. This line, Lakshmi sahasra satatam brahma sevyamanam. Goloka is described as a place where Sahasra Lakshmi, Sahasra Satatam Lakshmi, are engaged in sevya. They're engaged in service to Krishna. Even though everything is clean, there's no dirt there. There's no, there are no chores that need being done because the cows are Surabi cows and the earth itself is Chintamani. It is touchstone. So all desires are fulfilled. Chintamani prakara sadmashu kalpa vriksha. The trees are kalpa vriksha trees. So they have desire trees. They have philosophy stone Chintamani gems, and they have wish fulfilling cows. Nonetheless, hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis are constantly engaged in service. Why, we might ask, why would they be engaged in doing service if they have the facility to get everything done automatically just by willing it? Beautiful facility. And the answer is that there is joy in service. In serving, there is great satisfaction. There is loving reciprocation. So, service for the devotee is not a chore, it's a privilege. Service for the devotee is not a chore, it is a pleasure. Also in the Bhagavatam, the gopis, specifically Srimati Radharani, glorifies Govardhan Hill. Yad Rama Krishna Charanas Parashap Pramada, that by serving Krishna and Balaram, Giriraj is experiencing pramada, transcendental ecstasy or madness, like ecstatic exuberance that is like madness. Why? Just from serving. And so there is a hint for us. Our pleasure is in service, not in being served, but in serving. Let's reflect on this other idea. Each gopi feels special. Each gopi thinks that she's Krishna's favorite queen. How expert Krishna, despite his having numerous queens, each feels special and believes herself Krishna's favorite. This shows us how Krishna is able to reciprocate with unlimited souls equally and individually at the same time. And it should give us hope. Krishna, every living being is Krishna's part and parcel. Every living being, whether they know it or not, is Krishna's devotee. And we might think, well, how can I have a personal relationship with Krishna? How can Krishna ever know what I'm thinking and feeling and praying? Krishna is more than capable. We have the example here with his 16,108 wives, each of them feeling special and loved, despite there being so many other co-wives. And so the same is possible with all of us souls, to feel fully satisfied in our relationship with Krishna. This will be demonstrated. We'll learn more about it as we continue to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, chapters 69 and 70. We'll have Narada Muni visiting Krishna in Dwaraka. And as he enters into each palace, we'll see how what Sukadeva Goswami is describing here is demonstrated through different activities that Narada Muni observes. Let's go to our second topic then, describing some of Krishna's children. So each of these 16,108 queens has 10 sons by Krishna. And in turn, these sons, they father many of sons of their own, and then they also give Krishna grandsons. Like this, there are hundreds of thousands of Krishna's progeny in Dwaraka. So in previous chapters, we have learned from Sukadeva Goswami about Krishna's marriages to his 8 principal queens, plus this 16,108 who all came together after Krishna defeated Narakasura. So now Sukadeva Goswami will describe the 10 sons of each of the 8 principal queens, plus Rohini representing, she's like the chief for the 16,100. I won't read the names of all these sons that Sukadeva Goswami gives, but I will point out a few maybe for each of the queens. So Rukmini, she's Krishna's first queen, and her first is Pradyumna. And we had a whole chapter devoted to, or 2 chapters devoted to discussing his activities, and he'll feature prominently in the Bhagavatam going forward. So he's the most prominent of Krishna's sons. Satyabhama, she also has 10 sons, headed by Bhanu and Subhanu and Swabhanu and Prabhanu and so on. These are the Bhanu brothers, sons of Satyabhama. Jambavati, she has 10 sons, and the chief of them is Samba. Samba will appear in the Bhagavatam. A couple of stories involving Samba. He's a bit of a mischief maker, we could say. Think about it. His grandfather is Jambavan, the king of the bears. And so, anyway, that's my observation. I think there's something that carries through. Samba, he's a playful mischief maker. He's the son who dresses up as a female and goes to the sages and asks, "Will it be a boy or a girl?" She dresses up as a pregnant. He dresses up as a pregnant female. That, of course, brings about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. He is also the son who finds I think it's him, who finds the lizard in the well and then calls Krishna to take it out for he and the other boys. But then the other fun thing that he does is he falls in love with Duryodhana's daughter, Lakshmana, and kidnaps her or tries to kidnap her, which causes all kinds of trouble as well. He gets imprisoned, and then from Dwarka, there's a delegation that comes to Hastinapur to try to secure his release. Initially, Ugrasen Maharaj wants to send the army, but Balaram says, no, let's try to negotiate. So Balaram leads a delegation. Anyway, it's another saga. So all of these stories involving Shamba. What's the interesting thing about Jambavati's sons and Shamba is that Sukadeva Goswami tells us that these 10, headed by Shamba, are Krishna's favorite sons. So yeah, Krishna is equal to all, but it seems he has some favorites as well. Naglajiti, she has sons named Veera and Chandra and Chitragu. I need to tell you about one more of Jambavati's sons. His name is Chitraketu. So that's interesting because he's also a prominent personality in the Bhagavatam, but he's also one of the sons of Jambavati, Chitraketu. Kalindi's sons are Shruta and Kavi and Vrisha and Veera. So some of them have the same names because Nagnajiti also has a son named Risha and a son named Veera as well. So there's a doubling up between the queens, giving the same names to their sons. Lakshmana or Madra, he has a son named Pragosh, and Simha and Bala and Prabala. Mahashakti, Mitravinda has a son named Riksha, and Harsha means happy. I have a friend in Sydney whose non-initiated name is Harsha. So in LA, we have a friend. Okay, and then Bhadra. Her sons are Sura and Prahrana, Jaya, Bhadra, and then Rohini. So remember who Rohini is. She is the chief of 16,100. So two of her sons are mentioned, Diptiman and Tamratapta. And Sukadev Goswami says that uh, Krishna, he brought joy to all of these queens and all of these sons. So we can reflect here. We can marvel at Krishna's having 16,108 wives, but then if each of those wives has 10 sons, maybe some of you have already done the math. How many boys would that be? 161,080. 161,080 sons, and then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, and millions of grandsons. We can marvel. It is marvelous, but then for Krishna, it's actually not marvelous. The real marvel is how in the Bhagavad Gita, he tells us in 14.4, Aham bija Bharda Pita. I am the father of all living beings. We are all Krishna's sons and daughters. And a lesson for you and I is to develop Vasudeva consciousness or consciousness of Vasudeva Kutumba, a respect for all living beings as sons and daughters of God, of Krishna. When we embrace this truth, it fosters unity and compassion and kinship among all living beings. And it transcends the um, divisions that we might have between us. Let's go to our third topic. What happened at Aniruddha's wedding? So why Aniruddha now? Aniruddha is one of Krishna's grandsons. So we've learned about some of his principal sons, and now grandson. Grandson by whom? Sukadeva Goswami tells us that first Parikshit Maharaj asks a question. Parikshit says, how is it that Rukmi gave his daughter Rukmavati to the son of his enemy, Krishna? That son is Pradyumna. So Parikshit Maharaj, he's heard how Pradyumna, Krishna's son by Rukmini, married the son of Rukmini's brother, Rukmi. He asked, how was this possible? Rukmi hated Krishna. He had been defeated by Krishna in battle and was waiting for an opportunity to kill him. So how was it that these two inimical parties became united for marriage? Sukadeva, he answers. He says that the Swayamvara ceremony of Rukmavati, Rukmi's daughter, she herself chose Pradyumna as her husband, the personification of Cupid. The material Cupid was born within him, but otherwise he's the original transcendental Cupid. Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami further says that although he fought on a single chariot and was able to defeat all the other assembled kings who opposed his marriage to Rukmavati, he was able to defeat them and take her away to Dwaraka and marry her. Sukadev Goswami adds, although Rukmi always remembered his enmity towards Krishna, he had much of affection for his sister Rukmini. And because of that affection, he sanctioned the marriage of his daughter Rukmavati to his nephew Pradyumna. So Pradyumna and Rukmavati, they had a child, a greatly powerful Annirudha. So this is all very interesting, but it gets more interesting because excuse me, because when it was time for Aniruddha's wedding, for his marriage, then Rukmi gave his granddaughter Rochana to Aniruddha, that's his daughter's son, Rukmavati's son, Aniruddha, in marriage, again because of his affection for his sister Rukmini. So this is all quite wonderful. On that joyous occasion of their marriage, Krishna and Rukmini and Balaram and several of their sons, Krishna's sons, headed by Shamba and Pradyumna, they went to Rukmi's capital, not Vidarbha, because he left Vidarbha and made a vow never to return there until he had killed Krishna and brought Rukmini back, but to Bojakata. That was the capital, the city that he built after he exiled himself from Vidarbha. So Krishna went there as a guest with Balaram, Rukmini, and other family members, so that Buddha could marry this, or whose grandson could marry Rochana, the granddaughter of Rukmi. After the wedding ceremony, something happened. The group of arrogant kings, headed by the king of Kalinga, one of the ancient kingdoms of Bharat, of India, and he said to Rukmi, "Hey, Rukmi, you should challenge Balaram to a game of dice. He's not very good. He's not a good player, but he has a weakness for dice. So challenge him, and you will be sure to defeat him." And so, based on this advice from his friends, Rukmi challenged Balaram and began this gambling match between Rukmi and Balaram. In the match, Balaram first accepted a wager by Rukmi of 100 gold coins. Then Rukmi actually won that round, and the king of Kalinga, he laughed loudly, showing his teeth, which irked Balaram a lot. There was another round where Balaram put forth a wager of 100,000 gold coins, and he won. But Rukmi, he was a sore loser, and he cheated by declaring falsely, "I am the winner, I am the winner." And so this made Balaram very angry because Balaram doesn't like hypocrisy and unrighteousness. And so he accepted another wager, now from Rukmi's side, of 100 million gold coins, which Balaram won. Then Rukmi cheated by saying, "I have won, I have won." Let's see let these witnesses here, all his friends, say what they saw. And when he said that, "Let the witnesses say what they saw," there was a voice from the sky, a divine voice that declared, "Balaram has fairly won this wager. Rukmi is lying." Urged on by his evil friends, Rukmi ignored the Akashvani, the divine voice, and ridiculed Balaram. He said some very disparaging things, patronizing Balaram. He says, "Balaram, you're a cowherd boy. You know how to wander the forests, look after cows, but you don't know how to play dice. You're not a kshatriya, really. You're a Vaishya cowherd, playing dice, archery, fighting, chivalry. These are the sports of kings, they're not for the likes of you. So this was too much for Balaram. Rukmi had already lied and cheated and declared himself the winner when he wasn't. And now he was ridiculing Balaram, publicly humiliating him. And so Balaram was provoked to anger. And in the midst of that auspicious wedding ceremony, he raised his club and struck Rukmi dead. The king of Kalinga, who had been laughing through all of this, showing his teeth, tried to run away, but Balaram seized him and removed, knocked out all of his teeth. And then the other kings who had been urging Rukmi on and part of the colluding with his fraud, they all fled. How did Krishna respond to all of this? Sukadeva Goswami tells us. Krishna neither applauded nor did he protest. He neither applauded nor did he protest because he was concerned about his affectionate relations with Rukmini and Balaram. If he were to applaud to favor Balaram, then Rukmini might feel that she didn't have Krishna's support and empathy, that her brother has just been killed. If he empathized deeply with Rukmini, then Balaram might have felt that Krishna didn't understand his situation, of the humiliation that he was bearing, and the injustice of it all. And so Krishna remained silent, and they arranged for Annirudha and his bride, Rochana, to be placed on a fine bridal chariot, wedding chariot, and they set off to Dvaraka. And that's how the chapter concludes. So there's a lot for us to unpack here in this little story. One is we can think about these marriages between Pradyumna and Rukmavati, Aniruddha and Rochana, and despite the history of enmity and conflict between Krishna and Rukmi, marriages take place, and there are some relationships and alliances formed that historically relationships like this have been entered into to soften the hostilities between parties, to foster instead some unity and understanding. And so this story, Rukmini, despite his enmity to Krishna, granting his daughter's marriage to Pradyumna out of love for Rukmini, it showcases how affection, familial affections, can transcend these divides and grievances and pave the way for reconciliation. One doubt that you might have had as you were listening to this account is, this is a marriage between cousins. Like, how does that work? Intermarriage between cousins, yeah, it would appear unusual in a contemporary context. It was common practice in ancient times in different cultures, often for strategic alliances or maintaining family connections. These relationships between cousins or marriages between cousins were entered into. In India, there was a stipulation that they cannot be a marriage between parties of the same gotra. So in this case, so Balaram, so Krishna could not marry, Krishna's son could not marry Balaram's son because they're the same family gotra. But Rukmini, she is of a different gotra, a different family. Of course, she's Krishna's wife, but she has a different family name, so to speak. So you can't marry a cousin with the same surname. I guess that might be a way of thinking. That was one rule in the Vedic context. But yeah, in various cultures, that was there was an allowance for marriage between cousins. Today, and even 150 years ago, in different European royal families, there was a lot of marriages between cousins because they wanted to marry another royal from another royal house. But it did prove some it did prove problematic because you have a mix. One of the family lines has a genetic a gene fault, like ailment in their genetic code, and then two, then that gets fixed. Then you have that ailment reinforced, and so over time, if that happens too many times, then that bloodline becomes weaker and weaker. Therefore, it's not encouraged, particularly it's not encouraged today. But here we're talking about the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. So it's no problem at all. That would not be a consideration. Jumna, powerful. Annirudha, powerful. Rukmini's family, also very powerful and strong. Another lesson we can take from this are the pitfalls of gambling. One of the vows that devotees take in the Krishna consciousness movement, no gambling. This last game between Balaram and Rukmini, you could say it highlights the dangers of gambling. It showcases how it can escalate into deceit and discord. So why we don't gamble is because it runs counter to truthfulness. We don't eat meat because it runs counter to compassion. We don't engage in illicit sex because it runs counter to cleanliness. We don't engage in intoxication because it runs counter to self-discipline, self-regulation, or austerity. So truthfulness, compassion, cleanliness, and austerity are said to be the four pillars of Dharma. So we see here a good example of how gambling can lead to untruthfulness, and in this case, it also leads to um, discord as well. So these stories in the Bhagavatam, they serve as cautionary tales about the perils of gambling, leading to manipulation, cheating, and negative consequences. Even a story like this, which involves the Supreme Lord, Ramji, Balaram here, with the role of a teacher, by, by an example that we will not follow because we see the consequences of what was experienced here. And this happens in other places in the Bhagavatam, famously with the Pandavas and Yudhisthira Maharaj, who ends up losing his kingdom, and even his own wife, Draupadi, is gambled away. So we learn of the perils, the pitfalls of gambling. Another lesson for us to reflect on are the consequences of falsehood or deceit. So Rukmini's attempt to cheat, falsely declare himself a winner, exemplifies the repercussions of deceit. Here, deceit is actually fraud because what's been wagered are many hundreds of thousands of, or many thousands of gold coins. And so this lie is so that it's not just about the politics of it, but there's also a fraud here in that he wants to take claim for money that is not rightfully his. And so we learn here the importance of honesty and integrity, and we're warned against the pitfalls of dishonesty of any form. The divine voice wants to set the record straight. It vindicates Balaram, the Nabhavani here, or the voice in the sky. And this also shows us how there's a divine justice that will prevail over deceit, highlighting the importance of fairness and honesty in all of our dealings, even if we think there's no witness, because all the witnesses are going to bear falsely to support our fraudulent claim. But there is always a witness. Paramatma is witnessing, and there is a nature is the divine justice, and so justice will be served. Here, that witness is indicated by this Navavani. Although Balaram is there personally, but his word is being questioned. So nature itself has taken it upon herself to bear this to Balaram and say, no, Balaram speaks the truth. Rukmini is lying and indicating to us there's no misdeed that we perform that is not witnessed, and we will be held to account, even if we think there's no one there to see what we're doing, or to, um, or even if we cannot escape the divine justice. Finally, we can reflect a little more on Krishna's neutral stance during the conflict between Rukmini and Balaram. And this shows us the sensitivity that we need to relationships and family feelings. It signifies the delicate balance required in maintaining relationships and how it's important to avoid actions that could jeopardize these loving dealings or relationships between loved ones. Walking the tightrope there, Krishna, is by maintaining this neutral pose, neither celebrating nor lamenting, just keeping a poker face, so to speak, because he doesn't want to take sides here and please either Nora or Rukmini, uh, or please or at the expense of the other. Let's conclude with a prayer. Beloved Krishna, your reciprocation with your 16,108 queens radiates devotion and service. Their selfless acts echo the joy of serving you, teaching that service is a privilege. Your unique bond with each of your 16,108 queens exemplifies the equality and individuality of your love. Each queen feels cherished, revealing your ability to embrace countless hearts equally, yet uniquely. Beyond the marvel of your 161,080 sons, appreciation of your declaration as the father of all living beings evokes unity and kinship, fostering compassion and harmony among all. In your pastimes of reconciliation and conflict, you also enact pastimes that caution against deceit and the perils of unchecked gambling, emphasizing honesty, integrity, and responsible relationships. Krishna, your pastimes convey lessons profound of devotion, equality, honesty, and the delicate balance in nurturing relationships. May they guide us to foster respect, unity, and devotion, our lives echoing the divine melody of your sacred teachings. That concludes, but if you have any comments or questions, please do type them into the chat. In the meantime, let me acknowledge some of you who joined us after I started speaking. We've already greeted Kirtina in Norway, Abhiyama in Christchurch, New Zealand, Adibadri in Peru. Nikunja's with us from Auckland, New Zealand. Nikunja says, Hare Krishna, Sri Prahlada Prabhu, and all assembled devotees. Thanks for being here, Nikunja. I'm guessing possibly at work while listening to Bhagavatam class. Alicia is with us in Auckland, New Zealand as well, possibly in the same situation. Thank you for being here. Nikunja, thank you, Alicia. Monica Sharma joins us from Sydney, Australia. Monica says, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you, Monica, for joining us. Amiyatma says, Prabhu, it appears that Krishna, in his role as a king and a family man, was expert in diplomacy. Is there a place for diplomacy in Vaishnava circles, or are simple and honest and straightforward dealings preferable to being diplomatic? Maybe all qualities are required according to time, place, and circumstances. Great question. Generally, we say that these are straightforward. Excuse me. Generally, we say devotees are straightforward in their dealings, that they're not diplomatic in that sense. However, we also have examples of Sanatan Goswami, for example, being diplomatic. Uh, so I would reconcile these apparent contradictions by saying, as a default mode, devotees are straightforward and honest and simple. Dealings between devotees will be of that nature. That's the general principle. However, there may be times where a sensitivity is required in dealings, and devotees have maturity to be sensitive to others' feelings as well. And therefore, something that I like to quote from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the austerity speech is satyam priyam hitam. So vakyam satyam priyam. Vakyam satyam priyam. Speech, austerity of speech is that it should be truthful and pleasing. That indicates a sensitivity in how we say truth, how we speak truth. We could say, no, I'm just going to give it to you straight. I'm going to be honest with you, not diplomatic, not coach, not couch up my words in, in any way, because devotees are to be straightforward, simple, and honest. That is there. At the same time, with sensitivity. And that sensitivity means that we are concerned about how people receive what we say, how things land, and there's a sensitivity to the feelings of the other, a sensitivity that a person will understand and how it will affect their feelings as well. So straightforward and simple with sensitivity. Do we call that diplomatic? I'm a little hesitant because diplomacy might indicate some kind of lying or cheating as well. The devotee won't lie or cheat, but they will be sensitive in their dealings. And so I'm not saying that all diplomats lie and cheat either, but um, the job of a diplomat is to protect certain interests in their dealings with others, negotiate and to achieve, to ensure that their party wins out or is not disadvantaged, or let us say is advantaged or has the advantage in the relationship. The devotee doesn't deal like that. The devotee is by default simple and honest and straightforward, at the same time mature and sensitive. That's the best that I can offer at this moment. It's a great question, Abhiyatma. As far as Sanatan Goswami and his diplomatic dealings, that would be an extraordinary case. And it's not his dealings with other devotees. He was in prison. He was imprisoned by the Muslim Nawab. Didn't like his being a devotee, didn't like that he was going to join Lord Chaitanya. And so Sanatana Goswami used some diplomacy with him. He spoke some white lies. He told because the jailkeeper was a Muslim, and so Sanatana Goswami glorified him as a saintly person. And then Sanatana Goswami said, I want to go on pilgrimage to Mecca. He didn't want to go to Mecca, he wanted to go to Vrindavan. But the holy place that would be understood by that jailkeeper and as a valid holy place would be Mecca. So he said, I want to go to Mecca, even though he wanted to go to Vrindavan. He said, by releasing me, you will be doing a pious act. You'll get the benefit of my pilgrimage. That's true. That's true. And so Sanatana Goswami's being diplomatic. He's using the language that the jailkeeper will understand. But then the other thing he does is he bribes him. He offers him gold coins, and he tells him the story that he can tell to the king to explain how Sanatana Goswami disappeared. So yeah, there is diplomacy involved here. This is not dealings with devotees, though. We can make this distinction. This is a life and death situation, so to speak. Sanatana Goswami is incarcerated. He's in jail, and he's using the means available to him at that time to be freed from the jail. He can do so much better service outside of the jail than in the yeah than as a prisoner of the Nawab. And so he invents these stories of the jailer that he can be freed from that situation. So great question again. Thank you, Amiyatmaji. Grateful for your question. Let's see what other questions we have here on Instagram as well. So also checking on Insta. Alicia says, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Oh, Banumati. Banumati is with us from Gainesville. Thank you for being here, Banumati. Banumati says, Hare Krishna, Pamho, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the class. Thank you for being with us. And for all of you joining, these classes happen every Monday and Wednesday, 3 p.m. New York time. You're welcome to join us. These classes have been going on for 3 or 4 years now. Amayatma confirming the response was helpful. Thank you for that. Jai. Okay, so we'll conclude here. Thank you all so much for your presence. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share Srimad Bhagavatam with you. May you develop a deep taste for hearing, chanting, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. May you deepen in your taste for chanting the holy name with attention. May you deepen your attachment to serving Sri Vigraha. May you deepen in your appreciation for Sri Dham, the place where Krishna is served, the place of Krishna's pastimes. And may you deepen in your loving appreciation for Vaishnavas, service to Vaishnavas. And with all of these practices, may your heart move to share the treasures of bhakti with others. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sarvaitam Bhakta ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Harival.